Thanks, Glenn, and thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for coming along here tonight. I look forward to catching up with you. I'm sure a few will want to have a chat after tonight, so we'll be around, the board will be around, and look forward to that. I've been here now for a couple of months. I've taken a chance during that period of time to talk to as many Melbourne people as I've been able to, supporters, members, sponsors, coterie groups, to the board, to anyone around the club, just to get a feel for where the club is at the moment as we finish this year and we're about to launch into next year. And I must say the emotion and the excitement and the way we finished this year certainly has everyone looking forward to next year. And in a lot of ways, the feeling that I got from pretty well universally across the board, and this includes the players as well, is that in many ways, the way we finished last year was about moving from this position of hope. And I just, so many people, as soon as I got the role, would come and talk to me. I hope we're going to make the finals this year. I hope we can beat some of those bigger clubs. I hope we can achieve these ambitions. And I think by the end of the season, as an entire club, a player group, supporters, everyone, we've shifted to that belief stage where we can see what we can achieve. I mean, I've certainly got a lot of very strong feedback about not only about winning those final games, but the way we played in those games. I think we look at that and go, that's a style of footy that stands up to finals footy against the best teams, and that's certainly exciting. So congratulations to everyone that's got us to this point. And I do want to say to Glenn and the board, I've seen the strategic plans, to Peter Jackson and the executive. Sometimes we see the culmination. We see what times like the way this season finished, and we go, that's where all the work's been done, and we can easily forget about the years of difficult times that get you to that point. And I'm sure, without asking the guys, but I'm sure there's a couple of times where they were feeling like, are we doing the right things? Should we drop the plan? Should we take another deviation? But they stuck to it. So well done to everyone and to the players. The club's in very good shape. I did want to have a quick chat to you about my observations. Glenn talked about us being a big club, a successful club. We've certainly got 160 years of history in that. Every club will have their tough times as well, and we're certainly coming out of the back end of an era where we had our challenges. What does it look like? I think we're a great club at the moment, but what does it look like to be even better? What does the next platform look like for the Melbourne Football Club? And while we're in great shape now, the thing that I find so exciting, the reason that I've taken this role, is I think there's still so many things we've got to achieve. So many really exciting things, big things that are going to redefine this club, and you're all going to be part of that. But in terms of us being a great club, I want to talk about our great clubs have great footy programs. What does that look like in my observations? Great facilities, Glenn touched on that. I don't think anyone up here at the front of the room would dispute the fact that we'd be towards the bottom of the ladder in terms of club facilities in the AFL, compared to what other clubs have done, and they've had government funding. It's certainly our time to create a facility that takes us from the bottom of the ladder to the top very, very quickly. Great supporters and members, the best clubs, the biggest clubs, the most resilient clubs, successful clubs have that really strong supporter and membership base, and I really want to touch on what that means to the club. It certainly means a lot more than having a big number on your website just because you've added some numbers. A great business model and financial model that gives you a real resilience, allows you to stay on strategy. And I think another thing that's really important for a club like this, a club like Melbourne, a club that you're so proud of every day, is, yes, we can be proud of what happens on field, but I would suggest in the conversations I've had, you guys are just as proud of some of the community work and programs that we're involved in, and the difference that we make to so many people, not only Melbourne supporters, but the broader community. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly and at a high level to make some points, but like I said, from a footy point of view, the first thing I always look for in a football program is that alignment through the whole program. And, you know, I've got to tell you, the alignment with our men's AFL, our women's AFL, we've just gone to another level with the work that Josh Marnie's done with our VFL team, taking over management and leadership rights of that. And it just allows us, even with our VFL teams, that the training, the way we play the game, our coaching, all stays in alignment. Now, what does that look like, that alignment, when it manifests? And what that looks like is more and more now you'll see the players that come through our VFL program hit the ground running, playing a style of football exactly what we want in the middle of the MCG, so that you know, we've got ready-made players in alignment with our coaching. So the alignment's great. The leaders across the board, and so many of them are clear ambassadors of the club, whether it's Goody, the captains, right across the board. The leadership group of the club is, you know, in really great hands. It's a young group, but certainly a mature group. And I've got to say, driven. I don't know if you guys have had much of a chance to chat to them. First conversation I had, I think, was with Jack Viney, and I thought he was going to drag me down to the ground at one stage if I said the wrong thing, and I thought that must just be Jack. I'd watched him as a junior, and he'd put enough fear into me as a 14-year-old. But really, it goes all the way through the program. You know, the really competitive spirit is fantastic. You know, the list, again, I'm not going to go through the players, but the feeling that I get from you, and pretty well everyone across the board, and probably even more important, the players themselves, look at that list and they're excited about what it can do over such a long period of time. And if you get the list and you have a look at some of the superstars in the team, you've got to keep on cross-checking it to check their ages. So many of them are mature players that have played a lot of footy, and you feel like they're in their prime. Look at their ages, and they've still got a lot of football to play, and they haven't even hit their peak yet. The culture, I mean, it's been talked about a lot as a culture of a program. I certainly haven't seen it in elite sport. The culture, the energy, the fact that they work so hard from the first training session, was like they were training for the last week before the first game, but they have so much fun and energy and that connection with each other. So again, having these things in place as a footy program doesn't guarantee your success next year, but I can tell you now, if it's not there, it's going to be pretty hard. And this is a group that's got it in spades. Game style, I touched on it before. Again, so much unsolicited feedback from you is, I love seeing the team play and win. That's a really important thing. But just as exciting, the way they play, I love rolling up to watch them. Now, am I right on that one? Just like the way they play, I can't think of a team that I enjoy watching play more. I was in at the AFL the other day, and Gillum McLaughlin said the same thing. And he said that clubs are coming to him saying, we've got to change the rules and we've got to do this and that. And he literally says to him, just go and watch Melbourne play. That's how the game should be played. So fantastic to the boys. And I've just got, you'll see up there, time. You'd probably think that I could come up with, after all the conversations and the time with the player group, something more constructive in what's going to be the difference to next year as what it was this year. But I can honestly look at that group and go, the best teams, the teams that go on and play in finals and win premierships, play a lot of footy together. But, you know, the backline plays 40, 50, 60, sometimes 100 games beside each other. And we've got some great players coming into the team, but, you know, team players around them aren't sure if they're going to mark, they're going to spoil, are they going to kick on their right foot, are they going to kick on their left foot? That just comes from training and playing together. So time's a really important factor with this young group. So keep on backing it in. Don't be surprised with any young group if you have just unbelievable efforts that you just don't know where they've come from, and then other times where they're a little bit unpredictable. You know, that's the fun of watching this list as it develops. So couldn't be happy with the footy program. The facilities, I mean, Glenn's covered this off. I'm going to go through it very quickly in terms of, this is my number one highest priority. So while I'll go through it quickly, trust me, this is something that plays on my mind and in my role every single day. And it's a complex one. It's not easy if you choose an inner city area to be looking at building facilities. If you go out into the greenfield sites out of Melbourne, certainly a lot easier. But heart and soul, Melbourne, this is where it is. This is where you want to see your facilities. This is where, as Glenn was talking about before, we want to have the best training facilities for these guys to give them a competitive edge. And I think the way the guys go about their program now is fantastic, but we'd love to give them even more support of that. Elite facilities. Combining the footy program with the staff. Again, as a club, the best clubs, like if I ask you to close your eyes and imagine the best clubs, that's what you imagine. The whole team together, including you. Like, we actually need to have a social club. And when we win a game, I'm not sure where you all go, but the whole club disappears in different directions. We need to have a social club where we get together and, you know, sometimes we'll be crying on each other's shoulders and feeling sorry for ourselves, and other times we'll be singing the song together, surrounded by the players, the coaches, the board, everyone. That's what a club looks like. Again, am I right with that? It's certainly the feedback that comes through. I think nearly the number one thing people are saying, just create a central hub, create a place, a meeting place. A place that we go, that is the Melbourne Footy Club. So that facility, really important. That's absorbing a lot of my time, and we're not going to compromise that. So if it takes a little bit longer, if it looks like we end up in a couple of battles along the way, this group here is happy to have the battles so that we get it right and it's a legacy for the next 50, 70, whatever years. That's the Melbourne Footy Club. And I want to touch on this area of supporters and members. So every experience that I've had since I've been chatting to people in the role has been absolutely positive, and I've loved it. But I must admit, I do get a funny feeling when I'm chatting to, and I can't put my finger on it yet, but in terms of Melbourne supporters saying they love the club, they're so excited, they're so proud at the moment, and then the first question I ask them, are you a member? And I still find it so surprising how many Melbourne supporters aren't members. And I talk to MCC members. Now, I know I'm talking to the converted, but I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you this in a minute. But I talk to MCC members. Some of them are really close friends. I know they're not struggling for money, and I say to them, you're an MCC member, we love that. You come to the games and watch, but are you a Melbourne member as well? And as you know, of the 23,000 MCC members, only half actually acknowledge as being a Melbourne supporter. That's a big difference to this club. And you guys are doing the hard yards, but that's probably, if we just get the MCC to go, yes, I want to be a Melbourne member as well, that's over $1 million a year. So if MCC members had been doing that even the last 5 years, we don't carry any debt. We got extra money in the bank to put into our footy department, our membership services, our clubs. We're a different team. So we're not privately owned. We are a members club. And if we want to be big, like Glenn talked about it in terms of we're a big club, we certainly are. But we've got to want to be big, we want to connect, we want to be part of this. Now, again, so that you can pass this on to others, I can guarantee you the research every year says the same thing. Supporters that become members, and you would know this, feel more connected, more proud, more involved, come to more games, get more satisfaction when we win, we make finals. So emotionally, it's a much better experience. So if you sit here in the room here, I know you're all members just to get through the front door. So again, long-term members, many of you. Does anyone here in the room know of a Melbourne supporter that's not a member? Just put your hand up quickly. So if we've got 200 to 300 people in the room there, and I'm tipping you probably know multiple, when I see, I talk about membership, I want the whole club to see that we're all the membership base. Like we've all got to play a role in actually talking to Melbourne supporters to say, now is the time. I can't think of a more exciting time to be a Melbourne member. So I just encourage you to have that conversation. And if they try and push you away, just keep on going and try and embarrass them a little bit. Because if we just, each one of us is adding one, and I guarantee every single person I chat to, if they're not a member, I try and convert. I have no problem if they say they're going to sign. What do you think I do 2 days later? I check the database. Has Joe Blogg signed up? Because he's a mate of mine, he said he was. And if he's not, I'll ring him and have a chat to him. So look, I'd love to think thousands of members are going to see what the players are doing, where the club's going, are going to jump on board. I'd love to think it's going to be 5 or 10,000. But if we have to build the membership one by one, we'll do that as well. And so the whole club is the membership department. And I put up there also, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but over the last 10 years, I've also had a lot of Melbourne members talk to me about the war stories and the scars they carry of, you know, Perty, we were 4 goals up in the last quarter and then so-and-so team came over the top of us and I swore I'd never be a member after that, or whatever it is. I've heard all the stories. And I don't think that helps us move forward. I don't think that helps us be the best version of what this club can be. I don't think it helps us be big and financial and resilient. So I say the same thing to them. Really, it doesn't help us. You've got to move on. That was 6 or 7 years ago. This is an exciting time. So if I told you there was 27,000 members that just haven't renewed in the last 10 years, it's a lot of members. A lot of people who are Melbourne supporters that could sign up again. So in the last 10 years, they just haven't come back as a member. 27,000. And also the kids. Who's got kids or grandkids? All right, well, I don't mind putting you on the spot and say, you've got a responsibility. All right, and some of you have been reneging on that responsibility. I mean that generically. Because we've sort of lost a generation of kids, because we haven't been playing in finals, we haven't won a grand final. So a lot of granddads or dads, the sons and daughters that what we call a generational supporters all the way through, we've lost a generation, and that's not my opinion, that's in our membership numbers. And they're the members of the future. They're the people that are going to be sitting here, not rattling my cage because I'll be way gone by there, but they're going to come through and be next board members, I don't know, next players. But that generation there, we need to engage the kids coming back, because you know what they did over the last 10 years? We can see it. They become Richmond and Hawthorn members. I only tell you that just because hopefully it irritates you. And you go, I'm not going to let that happen again. So there's a little bit of homework. So Christmas Day, just ask the kids and the grandkids, who are you barracking for? If you get them before 8 to 9 years old, you can convert them back. The stats show that. So is that a fair project for everyone? Right. It's really important. And not only, as I said, the numbers of membership, but can I tell you, if a small percentage of those kids stayed on board, a very small percentage, let's say 20% of the unrenewed actually signed up, if just half of those MCC members actually said, I'm going to buy into this and be part of it and not leave that responsibility to others, we are millions of dollars different club. And we start making decisions simply on strategy, not finances. Right? So without going into the specifics of that, that fundamentally makes us a different club. So I make no apologies, a big part of my role is actually going to be building those supporter base and membership base any way possible. And the financial model, the business model, again, I think it's just worth as we announce profits, and I think it's the outcomes that we've been producing, and we've really created some stability. But if you go through the financial reports, you'll see that we are still heavily supported by the AFL. And I want everyone to know that the AFL does that as a short-term support exercise. The responsibility is to us as a full club, not just the people sitting out the front, as a full club is to actually fight our way back, perform our way back, regroup to the point that we are financially independent. We're not relying on that. We make the decisions we want to make. Some of the clubs that aren't in the same situation for us will be able to tell you how different an experience that is. So just stress that, need to be financially independent. And, you know, again, I flagged the role of memberships a really important one of that. Glenn touched on the non-traditional revenue streams. We'll be doing a lot of work, as in every other AFL club is doing the same, is coming up with new revenue streams for the future that aren't based around whether we're winning or losing on field. Because in an equalised competition, that can't be maintained forever. Great community involvement, and again, I've listed some of the great community programs, but they're programs, you know. I won't go through them again, but again, in the feedback, I hear how important that is to you. You know, those community programs are really part of our DNA that you're so proud of. One that I did want to flag, you'll see at the bottom there, the Casey precinct, the Casey community. There's far more than us seeing that as a place to play games for our men and women and maybe recruit some talent. We'll be investing heavily, and Josh, in his new role, is in effect the CEO of the entire Casey region. We'll be looking at developing other local sports communities and really making an impact out there. And if you go out to Casey, it's a fair drive. Check with Josh the directions before you leave tonight. It's a fair way out there. But when you get out there, our plan is for you to see the Melbourne colours and the word demons everywhere. So that's going to be a really big part of our community program. So they were just a couple of things. Like I said, in that period of time, I wanted to do a lot of listening rather than talking at the start. I can't tell you how excited I am about the fact that those things I just talked about there are going to be what I'm, you know, living and breathing every day now for this period forward. And, you know, I'm as equally excited about what 2019 looks like as you are. So any of the specifics, grab me after tonight, and I look forward to catching up with you over the next season and next few years. And again, go D's.